The memory of war. The night was dark and heavy with smoke. John moved through the ruined city like a shadow. 10 years ago, the world was at war with beings no one had ever seen before. They came from the stars, their ships cutting through the skies like blades of fire. Humans fought with everything they had, but the aliens were stronger, faster, and merciless. John was only 20 then, a soldier without glory, just one man trying to survive. He had lost friends, brothers, and his own commander in the flames of battle. Every day was filled with fear, and every night he expected not to wake up again. The screams of people burned in his memory. The smell of ash always followed him. But it was on one night that everything changed. In the ruins of an old building, he heard a cry. It was not human, soft but sharp, like a song broken by pain. He followed the sound, even though his training told him to stay away. What he found made his heart stop. There, in the shadows, lay a small figure with skin as blue as the night sky. Her eyes were wide and glowing, her hair like silver under the flames. She was bleeding, trembling, and too weak to move. A young alien girl, abandoned in the chaos of war. John raised his weapon at first, his hand shaking. She was the enemy, the same kind that had killed so many of his people. But then she whispered something, her voice breaking. "Please help me." The words were not perfect, but human enough to break his heart. John looked at her, really looked, and saw not a soldier or a monster. He saw a child, scared and alone. Against every order, against every thought of reason, John lowered his weapon. He knelt beside her and pressed his hand against her wound. The blood was strange, bright and glowing, but she was still alive. He carried her through the rubble, hiding from both humans and aliens. He did not know why, but something inside told him it was the right thing to do. That night was long, every step filled with danger. Human soldiers would kill her on sight. Alien hunters would kill him if they found him. Yet he kept going, whispering to her to stay awake, to keep breathing. Her small fingers gripped his shirt, refusing to let go. She was afraid, but in her fear, she trusted him. Finally, John reached the broken cellar of an old house. There he stayed with her, tearing his own uniform to bandage her wound. She looked at him with eyes too bright for her fragile body. "Why?" she asked in a trembling voice. John only said, "Because you are alive." For days he kept her hidden, stealing food, giving her water, watching over her. He knew if anyone found out, he would be executed. But the strange bond between them grew. Sometimes she spoke in her language. Sometimes she tried human words. He listened, not understanding everything, but feeling her fear, her hope. One night, as bombs shook the ground above them, she reached out to him. Her hand was small and shaking, but her voice was strong. "You saved me one day. I will return." Her words sent a strange shiver down his spine. Before he could ask what she meant, her people came, silent and powerful. John hid in the shadows as they took her away. Before leaving, she turned her head and met his eyes. No smile, no tears, only a look filled with something he could not name. Then she was gone, swallowed by the war and the night. No one ever believed John when he told the story. They laughed, they called him mad. They said no alien child would ever beg a human for mercy. But John remembered, and the memory stayed with him for 10 long years. A secret buried deep in his heart, a secret that never let him sleep in peace. The war ended, peace returned, but inside him the echo of that night never died. And somewhere in the stars, he felt she was waiting. The unexpected return. 10 years passed like a fading shadow. The war ended, and humans tried to rebuild what was broken. Cities rose from ashes, streets filled with life again, and people smiled as if they had forgotten. But John never forgot. Every night, the same memory came back to him. The blue-skinned girl with silver hair, whispering that she would return. He lived quietly in a small town now. No longer a soldier, just a man working in a repair shop, fixing broken machines. He kept to himself, avoiding questions, avoiding memories. But in his heart, He always wondered if that night had been real or just his mind playing tricks. Some days he even wished it had been a dream. Then one evening, the sky changed. The air trembled. Lights flickered across the horizon. People rushed outside, pointing at the heavens, whispering in fear. A great ship descended slowly, glowing with colors no human technology could make. Its shadow covered the town like a dark hand reaching down from the stars. John felt his chest tighten. He knew, before anyone else who had come, the promise from long ago was finally being kept. As the ship landed in the open fields beyond the town, soldiers and police gathered quickly. But their weapons looked like toys compared to the massive alien craft. A door opened, light spilling across the field. Figures stepped out, tall, armored, powerful, their presence heavy with authority. And then she appeared, the girl from 10 years ago, but no longer a child. She was taller, her skin shining a deep blue, her hair flowing like silver fire, and her eyes glowing brighter than he remembered. Gasps rose from the crowd. Some stepped back in fear. But John stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. Her gaze swept across the humans until it found him. In that instant, it was as if no one else existed. Her lips parted, and her voice carried across the silence like thunder. "Kneel before me, human," she commanded. The crowd stirred in confusion, whispers spreading like wildfire. Who was this alien woman, and why had she come to demand submission? Why was she speaking directly to John, a simple man no one respected anymore? The soldiers raised their weapons nervously, but their hands shook. John's heart pounded. He remembered the weak child he once saved, the trembling hand clutching his shirt, the voice begging him for mercy. But now she stood like a queen, her presence heavy with power, her words sharp as blades. Was this the same girl, or had she become something more? Why had she returned, and why had she chosen him? The people looked at John with suspicion. Some shouted that he must know her, others demanded answers. But he had none to give, only the heavy truth in his chest that the past was no longer a secret. Her promise had come true, and the world would never be the same again. Clash of emotions. The field was silent, yet heavy with fear. Her voice still echoed, "Kneel before me, human." The soldiers did not move. The townspeople whispered in panic, but John stood rooted to the ground. His heart told him this was the same girl he had once saved, but his eyes saw a queen who now looked at him like an enemy. She stepped closer, her silver hair moving with the wind. Her guards followed, their weapons glowing with strange blue light. No one dared to breathe as she stopped only a few steps away from John. Her gaze pierced into him, sharp and cold. Yet somewhere deep inside, he thought he saw a flicker of memory. "You remember me," she said, her voice calm but filled with hidden fire. John's lips parted, but no words came. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to remind her of the cellar, the fear, the promise. But the weight of the moment crushed his voice. She tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle. "You saved me," she continued, her tone soft for a moment. Then her eyes narrowed, her voice hardening like stone. "But humans destroyed my people, burned our homes, and hunted us like animals." The crowd gasped, hearing her words clear and sharp. John felt their eyes turn on him, as if he carried the guilt of all mankind. He clenched his fists, fighting to speak. "I was just a soldier. I did what I thought was right," he finally whispered, but her laugh was cold, echoing across the field. "Right? You think saving me was right? Or do you think betraying your own kind was right?" she asked. Her words cut into him deeper than any blade. John's chest tightened. He remembered her small hands gripping his shirt, her trembling voice begging for life. He remembered choosing mercy over duty, kindness over war. And yet here she was accusing him. The girl he once carried through rubble now stood tall above him, demanding he kneel. The humans around them grew restless, soldiers raising their rifles. But none dared fire. The fear of her power weighed them down. John stepped forward, ignoring the warnings shouted by others. His voice stronger now, though heavy with pain. You are alive because of me, and now you want me on my knees? For a brief moment, her eyes softened. The memory of that night flickered across her face like a hidden flame. But she pushed it away, her expression turning cold again. You will kneel, not because I ask, but because your people owe me a debt of blood, she declared. The air itself seemed to vibrate with her words. John's heart broke between two worlds. To her people, he was an enemy. To his people, he was now a traitor. He did not know which truth was heavier, the mercy he once gave, or the demand she now placed upon him. The clash of emotions tore him apart, and as he looked into her glowing eyes, he knew the war of 10 years ago was not truly over. The proof of power. The silence of the field broke when the ground began to shake. The alien guards spread out, their weapons humming with energy, their armor glowing like living metal. The humans watching stepped back, fear pressing into their throats. No one had ever seen power like this up close. The alien woman, no longer the girl John once knew, raised her hand. In an instant, the ship behind her shifted, its panels sliding open like wings of a beast. Blue light poured into the sky, and a beam of energy stretched into the clouds. The air cracked with thunder, as if the heavens themselves were being split apart. The soldiers aimed their rifles, hands shaking. Stand down, John shouted, but his voice was lost in the roar of the energy above. The aliens moved with perfect control, their steps silent, their eyes cold. They looked like gods among mortals, untouchable and fearless. Then, to prove her command, she turned her gaze to an abandoned tower near the edge of the field. She raised a finger, and the structure trembled. The humans gasped as the steel beams bent like clay. With a wave of her hand, the tower crumbled into dust, falling into nothing. The sound echoed across the town, leaving only silence behind. People screamed. Some fell to their knees, others tried to run. But the alien guards stopped them with nothing more than a single step. Their presence alone was enough to freeze the crowd. The humans realized they were powerless, fragile, and small before such might. Her eyes turned back to John. This is the power I command now, she said, her voice heavy with iron. I was once weak, helpless in your arms, but those days are gone. She walked closer, every step pulling the world tighter around him. You will kneel, not to me, but to the future I bring. John's jaw clenched, his heart burning. He remembered the small girl he had carried through fire and rubble. But now she was a queen, a leader, and perhaps even something greater. Her people's power was unmatched, her soldiers disciplined beyond fear. The humans had no chance against them, and everyone knew it. The soldiers beside John lowered their rifles, their courage broken. One of them dropped to his knees, muttering prayers. Others followed, surrender born not of loyalty, but of terror. John stood tall, refusing to move, his legs trembling, but his will firm. He would not kneel, not yet, not without answers. She watched him carefully, her glowing eyes narrowing. Still you resist, she whispered, as if testing him. The ground under John's feet vibrated as the ship's engines pulsed like a heartbeat. The air smelled of ozone, charged and alive. One wrong move, and the entire town could be destroyed. But John's silence was his answer. He would not bow to fear, even as the sky itself seemed ready to fall. The clash between them was no longer just about the past. It was about power, loyalty, and the future of two worlds. And though he stood alone, John's defiance was a spark against the storm. The hidden truth. The air was heavy, the silence pressing against every heart in the field. John stood tall, refusing to kneel, even as the alien queen's power shook the ground. Her eyes narrowed, glowing brighter as if they could pierce through his very soul. She raised her hand again, and for a moment John thought she would crush the town in anger. But instead she stopped, her gaze fixed on him with strange intensity. You do not understand why I have returned, she said, her voice low but sharp. This is not about revenge alone. This is about truth. The soldiers in the crowd exchanged fearful glances, not knowing what she meant. John clenched his fists, his voice steady as he spoke. Then tell me, what truth? She stepped closer, so near that he could see the faint silver veins glowing under her blue skin. When you carried me that night, when you pressed your hand against my wound, your blood touched mine, she whispered. A chill ran down his spine. Her words carried weight heavier than any weapon. My people discovered something no one believed possible. Human blood has power with our kind. Gasps spread through the humans. Even her own guards stirred uneasily. John's mind raced back to that night, to the glowing wound, to the way she had survived when she should have died. His blood, his human blood, had healed her. Your blood gave me life when death had already claimed me, she continued. And that life became strength, a strength my people could not ignore. She lifted her hand, and the alien guards behind her lowered their heads in silent respect. They follow me not because I am royal by birth, but because your blood changed me, made me more than I was. Her eyes locked on his, fierce and burning. You saved me, John, but in doing so, you created me. The words struck him harder than any blow. John's breath caught in his throat. All these years he thought it was mercy, a simple act of kindness. But now he realized it had been something far greater. Without meaning to, he had given her a gift no human had ever given. He had given her the power to rise above her kind, to lead them, to command them. The townspeople whispered in shock, some looking at John with awe, others with fear. If what she said was true, then John was not just a man. He was part of something larger, something alien. Her voice carried again, cutting through the confusion. You are not my enemy, John. You are my bond, my proof that humans and my kind are tied together. But then her expression hardened, her tone cold once more. Yet bonds can be chains, and chains can be broken. John shook his head, struggling to find words. So you came here for me? Not for them, he asked, his voice heavy. She did not answer at once, her silence speaking louder than words. Finally, she whispered, I came for both, but you are the key. Her eyes softened for just a heartbeat, a flicker of the child he once saved. And then the queen returned, her expression hard and unyielding. The hidden truth was out. John was not just a soldier haunted by the past. He was the reason she lived, the reason she ruled, the reason she demanded humanity kneel. And as the weight of her words sank into him, John realized the war was no longer between two species. It was between two hearts bound by blood, mercy, and destiny. The test of loyalty. The crowd murmured in fear and confusion. The queen's words still echoed in the air. You are the key. John's chest tightened, his mind spinning. He wanted to believe she still remembered the mercy of the past, but her soldiers stood ready, their weapons glowing like stars. Then she lifted her hand, silencing everyone. If you claim mercy, if you claim strength, then prove it, she declared. Her voice carried across the field like thunder. My people do not follow words. They follow action. They follow trials. She pointed to John, her eyes sharp as blades. You will face the test of loyalty, here and now. Before John could answer, the ship behind her roared. Its lower doors opened, and the ground trembled as something massive was released. From the shadows came a creature unlike anything humans had ever seen. Its body was armored like stone, its eyes burning with alien fire. Chains of energy held it back, but even bound, it was terrifying. The humans screamed, soldiers staggered backward. Even alien guards lowered their heads in respect for the beast. This creature, the queen said, her voice calm but deadly, has been trained to kill without mercy. Its fangs have torn through steel. Its claws have broken worlds. Her gaze returned to John. If you survive, you prove loyalty. If you fall, then you are never worthy. John's heart pounded, his legs heavy as stone. He had faced war before. He had fought soldiers, machines, and death itself. But this was different. This was a test, not of the battlefield, but of his soul. The beast roared, its voice shaking the air, chains snapping as it pulled forward. The ground cracked beneath its weight. Every human in the crowd screamed for John to run, but he did not move. He could not. His eyes locked on the queen, searching for something, anything that proved this was not madness. Yet her expression was unreadable, her face carved from stone. Was this her way of punishing him, or was it truly her way of measuring him? The beast lunged as the chains released. Dust and fire exploded from the ground. John rolled aside, the claws slashing where he had stood a heartbeat ago. His chest heaved, sweat already dripping down his face. He had no weapon, no armor, nothing but his will. The crowd shouted in terror. Soldiers raised rifles. But the alien guards stepped forward, their weapons raised in warning. No one was allowed to interfere. This was a trial between the man and the beast. The creature's eyes glowed red, its mouth dripping with smoke as it turned toward John again. Every step it took shook the earth. Every growl rattled the bones of those watching. John's mind raced. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. This was not a battle he could win with strength. It had to be something else, something deeper. The queen's eyes followed his every move, cold and merciless, yet hiding a faint spark of curiosity. The beast lunged again, its jaws wide enough to swallow him whole. John grabbed a broken steel rod from the ground, thrusting it upward into its mouth. The impact threw him backward, pain searing his arms. The beast howled, snapping the rod in half like it was nothing. John staggered to his feet, blood on his lip, defiance still burning in his eyes. He looked back at the queen. "I will not kneel to fear," he shouted. His voice rang out, strong and unbroken. The beast circled him, growling, its muscles tense like a storm waiting to strike. The trial was not yet over. But John had already proven one thing. His spirit would not break. The final decision. The beast circled John, its claws carving lines into the dirt. Its growl shook the air like thunder trapped inside a cage. John's chest burned with every breath, his hands bleeding, his body aching. But his eyes still carried the fire of defiance. He would not kneel, not to the beast, not to fear, not even to her. The queen raised her hand, and the beast froze. Her glowing eyes never left John, watching him as though he was the only soul alive. "You resisted death," she said slowly, her voice carrying across the field. "You chose to fight even when you could not win." The alien guards lowered their heads in silent acknowledgement. John wiped the blood from his mouth, his voice rough but steady. "I fought because life matters. Yours mattered 10 years ago. Mine matters now, and so does every human standing here." The words struck like a hammer. The crowd went silent, their fear replaced by something else. Hope. Even the soldiers, broken and trembling, lifted their heads to listen. The queen's face shifted, a flicker of the child he once carried flashing through her expression. Her hand trembled just slightly before she lowered it. The beast snarled but stepped back, retreating into the shadows at her command. She walked toward John slowly, every step deliberate. When she stood before him, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. "You defied me," she whispered, her tone heavy with both anger and admiration. "You refused to kneel, even when your life was moments from ending." John's voice was quiet but firm. "I will never kneel because I saved you once, not as a slave, not as a servant, but as a human who chose mercy." His words burned through the silence like fire on dry wood. Her glowing eyes locked onto his, and for the first time, they softened. The crowd could see it. The queen was fighting two battles, one with the humans and one within her own heart. She lifted her chin, her voice steady but trembling at its edges. "You gave me life, and you gave me strength, but mercy is something my people do not understand." Her hand reached toward him, not as a queen commanding, but as the girl he once saved. For 10 years, I carried your blood in me. For 10 years, it gave me power, but also a weakness, she said. The weakness was the memory of you. Her words struck him like lightning. The crowd gasped, soldiers frozen in disbelief. John stood still, his breath heavy, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, she lowered her hand, her voice breaking into something almost human. I do not want you as a slave, John. I want you as my equal. Her declaration sent a shockwave through both humans and aliens alike. The guards stirred uneasily, but none dared to question her. The people whispered in disbelief, unable to grasp what had just been said. John's chest tightened. The choice was before him now, not forced by power, but offered by destiny. He could kneel, and humanity might live in peace but under alien rule. Or he could stand as her equal, not kneeling, not bowing, but walking beside her. The decision would shape not just his future, but the future of two worlds. The silence stretched until it felt like time itself had stopped. Then John spoke, his voice clear, strong, unbroken. I will stand, not kneel, because equality does not begin from the ground. It begins from side by side. The words carried through the field, rising above fear, above pain, above doubt. The humans cheered, their voices trembling but strong. Even the alien guards looked at their queen, waiting for her response. Her silver hair glowed under the alien light, her eyes shimmering with something new, acceptance. She stepped back, her voice soft yet firm. Then so be it, human, she whispered. Not slave, not enemy, but equal. The decision was made, and the world would never be the same again.